Welcome back, guys, to the Play by Play podcast channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. And I want to thank you guys so much for your past support on the last episode. At the moment that I'm recording this, we're at 1.2 thousand views on the 2025 NBA mock draft. That is the highest that we've ever gone on a video. I'm so blessed to have that support from you guys. Let's keep it rolling, please. And thank you. It has been an absolutely chaotic and busy weekend. It is Monday, right after the weekend that the Boots in the Park Festival happened from where I'm from in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I have been absolutely screaming and singing my heart out. Got to see some great performers like Luke Combs, Parker McCollum, Scotty McCreery. Got to see Cody Johnson, whatnot, some of the top country artists, which was a ton of fun. But throughout this weekend, basketball definitely did not stop. There was still a lot going on. Most specifically, Denver Nuggets and Oklahoma City Thunder Game 7 happened on Sunday at about 1:30, I believe, where OKC ended up being victorious. And that's kind of the basis of this video today, is to kind of look at these final matchups that we have of the season, these conference finals matches, the series that are going to determine who is going to make it to the NBA Finals. And so today on this episode, I wanted to kind of analyze all of these matchups, kind of how I feel how all of these teams match up against each other, and most importantly, who I think is going to win and how these series are really going to go. So before I waste any more of your guys' time, I want to encourage you to please go down below, subscribe, like, comment, and share with all your friends, as well as go ahead and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those apps are going to be down below. And as always, there's going to be a bar popping up underneath me. And as you can see, we have had some new branding. We have a brand new logo, brand new banners on the YouTube account as well. Kind of just wanted to switch things up. We've gone for a lot of color and whatnot, but I like the more simplicity of the sketched out microphone and whatnot. So hopefully, let me know what you guys think about the new logo. Do you like it? Do you like the old one more? Just go ahead and give me some feedback on that and whatnot. Without further ado, guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's hop into this right now. So the conference finals matchups are officially set. We have on the western side the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Minnesota Timberwolves, and on the east side we have the New York Knicks going up against the Indiana Pacers. So let's start in the east because this was the first matchup that was really set. The Pacers versus the Knicks. And I think I can speak for everyone in the NBA community when I say that this was definitely not an expected matchup. I mean, not whatsoever. In my prediction, I believe I had the Cavs going up against the Celtics. I know, one versus two, pretty boring prediction. But to have a 3 versus 4 matchup, I believe, with the Knicks and Pacers, I think that this was unexpected, not just because of these teams, but just because of how dominant the Celtics and the Cavs had been all season long. And especially for a team like New York, who hadn't really beat any of the top teams in the NBA, it was really hard to believe that they could potentially go out and win games in Boston, that they could win big time high pressure matchups in New York. But they ended up coming out of this pretty strong. I mean, they go out, they're able to take the first 2 games in Boston, which was absolutely huge, especially to have that momentum moving into New York. Then they had, some alternating losses here and there, but ultimately they were able to take control. And I think really for New York, really what it came down to was their defense. And that was really the make or break thing for New York. That was the biggest question of all, is how would they be able to match up? Because sure, they do have the wing support defensively to be able to match up to Boston with Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, with OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, they could match there. But I think that there was a lot of questions about how guys like Karl Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson and whatnot would be able to match up against some quicker bigs on Boston's side, especially Kristaps Porzingis on the perimeter, and that wasn't an issue at all. Mitchell Robinson especially played a huge part in this series, being a very dominant rim protector down low, just making it very difficult for Boston to get anything going inside into the paint, which really forced them back past the 3-point line and forced them to take more threes than I think that they're used to taking. And it just wasn't a consistent or efficient enough strategy for Boston to move forward throughout that series. Not only that, but Cat didn't really get exposed on the perimeter. The wings came in clutch, especially Mikal Bridges, who has been pretty flat all season. I remember in that game two, I believe he came out in the fourth quarter scoring 17 points when he hadn't scored the entire game. Those are the big time plays that they needed to step up. And especially with Jason Tatum going down, it was really nice to see New York finally take a lead and be able to step on the gas pedal and extend it and finally just take over the series and just win it for themselves, because that's something that I think they've been lacking. In some past series and past years, they've given up games where they really needed to win it, or they've given up games where they're coming off of some momentum and then they lose that game, which kind of stops their momentum, and now they're kind of in a little bit of a lull. This series, even when they lost, it still felt like they were in pretty solid control and they were going to be able to make up for those losses, and they definitely did. And on the Pacers side, to be honest, I don't understand how they got past Cleveland, because Cleveland has been one of the most dominant two-way teams in the league this year. And I mean, behind the dominant scoring, behind guys like Donovan Mitchell, the length that they have down low with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, and especially with some of the lack of depth at the big man position that Indiana has. I mean, there's not a lot. It's really just guys like Miles Turner and Obi Toppin and whatnot. A lot of their depth comes at that guard position. I was really surprised to see Indiana still being able to battle down low, but I think that they were also able to really put their footprint on the pace of that series. They were able to really control the game in which they were playing at just a much faster pace. And because they had so many guards to switch in, you could start Tyrese Halliburton and Andrew Nembhard, but then off the bench, here comes guys like Ben Shepherd and Benedict Mathurin. And of course, we can't forget about Aaron Nesmith on the wing at the three. Obi Toppin, while he's not a guard per se, he still has some amazing guard-like type of athleticism. And Cleveland just wasn't able to get these games under their control and playing more within the half court and being able to play a slower form of basketball within the post and whatnot. They had to respond to the offensive output that Indiana was really giving them. And I mean, right now, that's on full display. I mean, those were the top two teams that had the top two offensive ratings in the playoffs so far. But Indiana was able to just put that pace on them a lot more. And even at times when they were in the half court, they didn't look panicked at all. And they had people to look towards when things broke down. When Hallie wasn't having a great game, there were other guys there to step in, which of course is what you need. And their depth is just so strong that it's so difficult to really get the upper hand, because when things are going wrong or when they're starting to get tired, they can sub in an entirely new, basically starting five. And it's an entirely different game. And there's a lot of versatility and just athleticism that it's very difficult to scheme against them and scheme against the type of basketball that they play. So looking at this matchup just based, I think the question once again comes down to New York's defense, right? And New York's ability to really take control of the series. Are they going to fall into the same trap that Cleveland did in playing at a much faster pace and shooting a lot more three-point output and whatnot? And getting to a much more inconsistent type of play of basketball? Or are they going to be able to stamp their footprint, be able to play a lot more isolation basketball on the perimeter with guys like Jalen Brunson, be able to play a lot more post game isolation on the block with guys like Karl Anthony Towns? Even Precious Achua was getting some time, Mitchell Robinson and whatnot. Are they going to be able to play that style of basketball? And most of all, when it does get into that quick pace, fast break type of game, which it will be, Indiana will be able to at some point fluster New York a little bit and have them running up and down. Can guys like Karl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson sustain their energy and be able to be effective in that type of form of basketball, especially offensively, being able to run back forth and be able to score the basketball with just purely layups and pull up three-pointers, because that's basis of the type of game that Indiana plays. And this series itself is super exciting. It's a new rivalry. It's a rivalry that is being renewed. We know all about the amazing Pacers Knicks series that we had in the late 90s, early 2000s. You then had, the early 2010s, where you had guys like Carmelo Anthony and Paul George going at it in their youth. So this rivalry has seen some star level matchups. And I think that we're seeing some of that as well. Maybe not the bigger names as you see with guys like Carmelo and George, Patrick Ewing and Reggie Miller, but Jalen Brunson versus Tyrese Halliburton is definitely a big time guard matchup as well. Miles Turner has been playing some great basketball over the past couple of years. Him against Karl Anthony Towns should be great. And I am a huge, huge fan of Andrew Nemhard, Aaron Nesmith, and Benedict Mathurin, and them having to go head to head against Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, and OG Anunoby. Man, it is going to be an exciting matchup in terms of who could potentially take it. Um, New York has home court advantage, which I think is really important, especially because the fan base for New York right now is very, very energetic. They seem to have new life after the decades and decades that they had of just misery with the New York Knicks. They have big time support. Indiana as well. They have a really dedicated fan base. So those home games are definitely going to be completely, completely packed. So it is important to have that home court advantage. Um, for me, I feel like New York has the more star power, right? You have Brunson, you have Bridges, you have OG Anunoby, who has turned himself into a perennial, potential all-star level wing. You have Karl Anthony Towns. On the other side, you have guys like Tyrese, but then you have guys that I think play in more of a role player type of role, while they can still explode for 20 plus points, they still aren't, top superstar type guys like Nemhard, like Nesmith, like Miles Turner. So I think that that serves New York right in that sense. But I also, on the opposing side, I think that Indiana has a lot more depth to them, especially on the guard play. With guys like Shepard and Mathurin coming off the bench, you have Halliburton and whatnot. Um, so what's going to be better, right? The more talent that you have at the top or the more talent that you have down the board with your depth. Um, Looking at the path that both of these teams have had, New York's coming off of a 6-game series against Boston, obviously. You have Indiana coming off of a 5-game series against, I believe it was Cleveland. Sorry for the confusion. You then have New York coming off of a 6-game series. I'm looking right now against Detroit, and you have Indiana going in a 5-game series against Milwaukee. So Indiana has played the less games. They have been waiting for a little bit, so maybe, will that play a factor, them having a little bit more energy? It's a really, really tight competitive matchup. But in my opinion, the way that these finals are going, I think that the depth has outdone the star power. And because of that, as much as I hate to do it, because I really, really do want to see this New York team potentially go all the way, I think that that would be huge, huge for basketball. I think that Indiana is going to be the winner in this one. I'm going to take it in 7. I could be potentially super, super wrong. Um, but I think that the speed, the less amount of games, the less tread on their tires that they've had, I think that Miles Turner is a tough matchup against Karl Anthony Towns, um, in a 1v1. Um, it's going to come down to, I think, how much offense can Halliburton really produce? Is he going to have an inconsistent series like we've seen from him in the past, or is he going to actually show up and be able to play a full 6, 7-game series where he's consistently getting consistent scoring numbers every single night? Um, but I just also feel that Indiana has defensive matchups for nearly every single player on New York's squad. I think that Nesmith matches up pretty well against Bridges or Anunoby. I think that Nemhard matches up with either Anunoby or Hart, or even potentially, I think that you could put Halliburton on Hart and then put Nemhard on Jalen Brunson. Um, so I'm going to take Indiana. I think it's going to be a hard fought 7 games. I could definitely see New York in 7 games as well, especially because I think that they have more big time performers in the clutch, whereas Indiana, I think, is more of a team that is going to look to blow you out by 10, 15 points because they don't really have that star power to come in at the end of the game and make big time shots. And as you can see by a lot of their games, I mean, they beat Milwaukee by 19, beat Milwaukee by 8, they beat Milwaukee by 26. They then win a game in overtime, so they had one clutch time game this playoff so far. You look at the Cleveland series, they beat Cleveland by 9, Cleveland by 1, uh beat Cleveland by 29 games. So they've had 2 close games, but other than that, all of them have just been, pretty big time stretches where it was a definitive win. So Um, I'm gonna go with Indiana. I trust their style a little bit more. I think that they've done a better job at putting their footprint on series a little bit more and winning more definitive games. Um, I think that New York just beat potentially the most talented team in the East, but I think that Indiana beat the best team in the East, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So I'm gonna go with Indiana in 7, but no doubt this is gonna be physical, hard fought. It's gonna be a clash of two differing styles, and it is gonna be a lot of fun to watch, which takes us out west to the Oklahoma City Thunder going up against the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is Minnesota's second Western Conference Finals in 2 years. Same thing with Indiana. So very, very cool to see these lower seeded teams being able to make two consecutive runs. Just commenting on the Oklahoma City's previous series against Denver. Of course, if you're just joining the channel, I'm a Denver Nuggets fan. Um, I was very surprised with how far we were able to push the Thunder, especially with how many issues we were having as a Nuggets fan with, Michael Porter Jr. being injured, Aaron Gordon getting injured in game 6 and having to play with a grade 2 hamstring strain in game 7. I was very surprised that we pushed Oklahoma City to 7 games. I honestly felt that it was going to be done in around 4 to 5. I didn't think that Denver was going to have enough offensively and that Oklahoma City was just so deep. They completely dismantled their first round matchup. Denver, you know, had some issues here and there. They had some offensive inconsistent games as they tend to have. They do at times have some games where they are very dry offensively. They go through these dry spots, and the Clippers were definitely a very, very difficult and physical matchup up against for them to go to, and especially with home court. Again, I just didn't expect us to put up much of a fight, but I think that's going to be huge for Minnesota, especially because they haven't had, a lot of very long, hard series. I mean, their first series against Los Angeles went 5 games. I believe they also went 5 games against Golden State. I'm going ahead and checking right now just so I make sure. They also went 5 games against Golden State, and they've won games pretty single-handedly, like pretty definitive as well. And that's interesting because, I was expecting a lot more of the offensive output to be on Anthony Edwards' shoulders after they traded Karl-Anthony Towns this previous offseason. And of course, it still has. Don't get me wrong. The output is still heavier on Anthony Edwards, but Julius Randle has done an amazing job showing up offensively so far. This is not something that we've seen from him in previous years, especially in New York, and especially from behind the 3-point line. He's done pretty okay from there. Naz Reid has given them some good minutes. Rudy Gobert is being a force down low. McDaniels is doing his job as a role player. And I think that Minnesota, in some ways, is very similar to teams like Indiana and New York, where they have a lot of really great defenders that can match up well against any team in the NBA. That's what I saw against Los Angeles, is the ability for Edwards and McDaniels to match up well against Doncic and LeBron. In Golden State, McDaniels and Edwards did a really great job matching up against Jimmy Butler and Buddy Hield, or Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry for the limited amount of time that Curry was playing. So they can match up anywhere, and especially in this series and going up against SGA, I think that McDaniels, while physically, I think that a guy like Jalen Williams is a little bit bigger than McDaniels. Obviously, I still think he could potentially contend there. They have the bigs down low to support against guys like Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren. Um, they just have a lot more perimeter presence, which I think was a really, really dark spot for Denver, is they allowed them to go out and take so many threes, and Oklahoma City was hitting them consistently on a consistent basis and was getting them open consistently. And Denver just didn't have enough to contend with them perimeter wise, but I think that Minnesota can do the same thing. And especially with having so much time off, Oklahoma City going through a slog of a 7 game series. I mean, it's going to be difficult for them to have this big time turnaround. Now they do have home court advantage, and I do still think that they have more depth on their side. I mean, Oklahoma City has 10, 12 potential guys that could go on and play on that court. Um, the question is it going to be better for them to be coming off of this 7 game series and to be able to just go right into more games And could the time off potentially affect Minnesota a little bit because it has them getting off the slower starts? Or is OKC going to be a lot more tired, especially down the stretch of these games? And is Minnesota going to be able to really slog this out? And most of all, who's going to take the cake offensively? Who's going to be the better team offensively? Because as great as SGA has been, I think that Anthony Edwards is a lot more dynamic offensively, and he's probably the best offensive player. But like I said, OKC just has so many people behind them that they could look to anyone. They've looked a lot towards Alex Caruso's way. Lou Dort has hit a lot of big time threes. Isaiah Joe didn't do his greatest from the 3-point line against Denver, but he's someone he's likely been their best 3-point shooter all season long. For them, Chet has shown an ability to get from the outside. Jalen Williams was improving his 3-pointer all throughout the series against Denver. So again, it's kind of who is going to outshine who, and who is going to be able to construct a better game plan around the star player. I think that Denver showed a little bit of a blueprint of how to slow down SGA throwing in the doubles, but I think that that also comes with the fact that you have to be able to rotate in those positions. You just can't allow Oklahoma City to swing the ball 3 or 4 times and get a wide open three in the corner. And I think that Minnesota will be more defensively responsible with that for sure. And so with that being said, as much as I hate to do it, I think that with this turnaround, and I think with the fact that Denver, not being a great defensive team, still was able to push this series as far as they were, with the lack of depth and veteran experience that they have. And remember, Minnesota has guys like Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo coming off their bench. They have amazing rotation on the defensive end. They have great length. They have solid presence on the inside defensively, which is another thing that Denver doesn't do great on, especially with having Nikola Jokic in a pick and roll and being able to attack downhill with that and whatnot. I'm gonna give this to Minnesota. Um, I see it as being a little bit easier than Indiana is gonna have with New York. I'm gonna give this to Minnesota in 6 games. Um, OKC with the depth that they have, with the amount of talent that they have, I think that they'll still be able to push it a little bit. But I think that the lack of experience that they have, the defensive matchups that Minnesota is going to have the capability to have against OKC, all of that taken into consideration, I think at the end of the day, that is going to be more impactful than what OKC is going to be able to bring to the table. And I think that Chris Finch, world-class head coach, in my opinion, is going to be able to craft something against SGA and still not allow OKC to be so dominant from the perimeter, especially with the length and athleticism that he has on his side. Which brings us to my prediction, potentially one that I was not expecting at all, and that is a Minnesota-Indiana series. And I'll be honest, if it ends up like that, that's really, really interesting, man. And that's a really, really fun matchup. I remember, obviously growing up throughout middle school and early high school, seeing Golden State versus Cleveland, 4 or 5 years in a row, and it was just so exhausting to see those people. And once we pass this 2020s mark, it's been so much fun to just see so many different matchups. I mean, after 2020, we got the Suns versus the Bucks, right? 2022 was who was 2022? 2022 was Warriors Celtics. Then 2023 was Heat Nuggets. Like just so many weird, quirky, and just interesting matchups. 2024 was Boston versus Dallas, which was very interesting. And now Boston's not going to be in there at all. Dallas is not going to be in there at all. And there could potentially New York, Minnesota. That could be interesting. New York, OKC, Indiana, could that potentially happen? That could be a lot of fun. And with this prediction right here with Minnesota versus Indiana, I'm not going to make a prediction for that series because we don't know if that's going to be the one set in stone. I will definitely come back here for a full NBA Finals review and prediction for all of that. But if that series ends up happening, it's going to be really, really fun to see Anthony Edwards going up against a defensive combo of Nemhard and Nesmith, to see Gobert having to go ahead and be able to contend with, the athleticism of a Miles Turner and whatnot. All of those hypothetical matchups, it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's my predictions for it. Let me know what you guys think about that. Let me know what you guys think is going to happen. How excited are you for this? I mean, these playoffs have been absolutely incredible. Honestly, the most NBA playoff basketball that I've watched in a very, very long time, the most that I've been excited to watch NBA playoff basketball. It has been so many great competitive physical series. Some great basketball is being played. If you haven't been tuning in, please tune in. I believe that the conference finals starts tomorrow. Let me go ahead and look that up for you guys. Or do we have some time? No, May 20th. OKC and Minnesota play tomorrow. So definitely tune in, check out those series, and let me know, what do you guys think is going to happen? What are you hoping for to happen? How many games? What players do you think are going to be the most impactful? What are you most excited to see out of this? Just let me know all of that down below in the comments, guys. As well as always, feel free to subscribe, like the video, and share with your friends. Always following us on all social medias, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. We're on all those. You will get to see my reactions to brand new breaking news. Guys, this was a big time week for us. 1.2 thousand on the previous video. I don't normally look at views on my videos, but this was just so exciting to see. We had, I believe, 7 new subscribers to the channel. We're all the way up to 45, which I know might not seem to a lot, but for me, it's just amazing support, and the small little group and community that we're building video by video. Man, I'm just so proud to have, created this and be here with you guys. So thank you guys for serving that for me. I will see you guys on the next episode. That is all that I have for today. I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of your week. Please be safe. And that's all I got. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.